class and discussion. It's good to be back in the house of Yah on this great holy Shabbat day. It's just no way that you can keep the Shabbat. At least I don't think so. If you're not here amongst or some other great holy congregation throughout the United States. When you do it at home, you just can't do it. So it's great to be back. And last week when I was out, I studied some of the books of Proverbs. And these Proverbs are outstanding. From the first to the last, it deals with everything. Everything. Talks about the base, talks about the honorable, talks about the virtuous woman, talks about the not so virtuous woman or the adulteress. It talks about everything. Talks about the sluggard, talks about the individual who works hard. I mean, there's nothing left out in this book of Proverbs. So we're going to deal with some of the Proverbs that was left to us by the great Shlomo or Solomon. But before we get started, let's look at Proverbs Chapter 1 so that we can see the purpose and the nature of these great Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 1, we start off with the first verse. It says, "The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity, to give excuse me, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsel. To understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. The fear of Yah is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." And just within those 7 verses, it tells us a lot. First of all, we start with the 7th verse. It says, "The fear of Yah is the beginning of knowledge, the beginning of wisdom. But fools despise wisdom and instruction." So what that's telling me is that someone who doesn't have the fear of Yah is definitely a fool. And he will not accept instruction, and he despises wisdom. Because we must have fear, and fear of Yah means 2 things. Yes, we must fear what he will and do with us through his chastisement and punishment. But we also should have the fear of reverencing him, of placing him above any and all things. See, fear is just not one-sided, it's both. Fear of the retribution, the chastisement, the punishment that he's capable of doing and will do to us for disobedience, but also that reverencing him. See, we reverence many different things, some in our jobs, some in the money that we make, some in our friends and acquaintances, some in our children, our husbands, our wives. But we must reverence Yah above all things. And when we do that, then we can attain wisdom. We can attain knowledge. We can attain understanding. And the purpose of these proverbs that he left behind is to give us that wisdom in dealing with each other and also in keeping the law. Because all through the Proverbs you see the law written in them. The instructions. It's made plain, made simple. But when you trace it back to the law. Now let's look at Kings. 1 Kings chapter 3. And we're going to start at the 5th verse. And in the 5th verse, and it talks about this great king, Solomon. In the 5th verse, it starts, in Gibeon, Yahweh appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and Elohim said, ask what I shall give thee. And Solomon said, thou hast shown unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he has walked before thee in truth and in righteousness and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. And now, O Yahweh my Elohim, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father. And I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this, thy so great a people? Now let's just stop right here in verse number 9 and look at what this great king asked for. He didn't ask for riches, which many a times we might fall down on our knees, especially in hardship times when money is scarce in our household. And we may pray, ask Yah to bless us with a little bit more wealth, a little bit more money. Bless us with a larger automobile. Bless us with a larger home. Bless us with this and bless us with that. But how many times do we ask him to bless us with an understanding heart, so that you may be able to deal with your brother, your sister, your children, your wife, your husband? How many times do we ask him to give us an understanding heart, so that we can be able to discern between the good and the bad, or the good and the evil? And this word discern, there's two different definitions. And in these definitions, there's a lot of other definitions or words that you could use. We're going to deal with the first one in verse number 9. And it comes from the Hebrew root word bayin. And you can look it up on the concordance number 995. And not just go to the concordance, but go to some of your dictionaries and you'll probably find the same definition. Because remember, these Hebrew root words are translated from Hebrew into English. So you'll find a lot of times in your English dictionaries, you'll find some of the same meanings and maybe some additional ones as well. But in general, the word discern means to separate mentally. To separate mentally. So what King Solomon was asking the Most High in verse number 9 was give him and understanding hard